Huge honor tonight to be interviewing Ori Spado out of California. Now, I've been watching some of his videos on YouTube, and he has a book out called The Accidental Gangster about his life from insurance to becoming a mob boss. Ori has mixed with some of the biggest names in the mafia community, and also he's rubbed shoulders with people who've killed dozens of other people. So we're going to be getting to the harder hitting stuff later on, but I'd just like to start out, Ori, asking, where was it you grew up in America, and where was your family descended from?
We're from Calabria, Italy, but I grew up in a small town upstate New York, Rome, New York. And from there, eventually New York City, and I lived in Florida, but I've been out here in Los Angeles for over 40 years.
And as a kid, did you see the local gangsters? Did you think, like, what is this lifestyle these guys are living, to be wearing these flash clothes and having all this money? Or was it later on when you fell in with them?
It was later on that I actually saw it. After I did some research on my ancestry, through my aunt and through a dear friend of mine, Frank Russo. Frank Russo's father was the boss in upstate New York. And on Saturday mornings, Frank Russo, who became a lawyer, used to open the cellar doors and let just a few guys go in for Saturday meeting. One of them was my grandfather. Our name back then was Spada, S-P-A-D-A. And Frank was well known throughout the country. He was a lawyer, but he still knew everybody. And he was the guy that everybody went to for favors. And I'm very close with his son, Drew Russo. And I keep kidding Drew. I said, it's all your father's fault. Because his father introduced me to Frank Costello, the Russell Buffalino, who Joe Pesci just played in The Irishman, Carlo Marcello, and of course, Sonny Franches.
Do you want to explain to people, because I've got a lot of people in the UK watching this, and they may not be familiar with those names. Do you want to run down who those people are?
Well, Frank Costello was one of the original guys with Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky going way back. He was a gentleman. He ran Tammany Hall, ran the politics. Russell Buffalino was known as the Quiet Don from Pennsylvania and parts of upstate New York. And he was quite a guy. As you saw in the movie, Joe Pesci played him perfectly. And then Carlo Marcello was out of Louisiana, New Orleans, and he's one of the people, along with Santo Triplicana and other, that they say was responsible for the assassination of President Kennedy.
So they had the Mafia Council, the various families. Can you explain what that is and which family you're talking about?
Well, the family that the U.S. Attorney has me with is the Colombo family. I always considered myself a renegade, but of course, U.S. attorneys think differently, as you well know. But I was with the Colombo Crime Family, and with Sonny Franches, who we've been friends for over 40 years, and we still are to this day. Sonny's 102, and we talk about once every week or couple weeks. And I'll tell you, at 102, he's got all his mind there.
Yeah, I've watched him on YouTube, and I've watched his son's videos on YouTube as well. So we've jumped ahead a bit. You've mentioned some huge names in the old school mafia upper tier.
I'll tell you, one of the best guys that I ever met and became one of my best friends is Joey Pyle from London. Joey Pyle was my best mate. I can't say enough about him. I can't say enough about the boys in London. Today, Joey's son is like, he calls me his father. From the U.S., I call him my London son. We're still close. And I've known him for years. Roy Shaw, Dave Courtney. Damn, I met everybody over there in London.
Yeah, I've had Dave Courtney on the podcast here.
Yeah.
And I had operations in Arizona. I was trafficking in Arizona, ended up with a similar case to you. So that was at the time when Sammy the Bulg was out there, when he was doing his thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. I read that in your thing. You and I actually have similar backgrounds.
RICO cases.
We both got RICO cases, but you were in the financial business. I was in the insurance business and financial business. So we got that. And maybe it's our experience in those that made us good at what we became.
Salesmen.
Salesmen.
You said that you clicked up with these guys later in life. It wasn't a childhood thing. You weren't like seeing them and idolizing them. So
no.
what was your childhood like then? Were you stable?
My childhood, my father made $35 a week. We had, besides me, I had 2 brothers, 3 sisters. It was humble, but my father was able to provide, and my mother was a great cook. We had a garden, and it was actually, pretty normal childhood upbringing.
And was it quite tough? Was your neighborhood quite tough? Did you say it was Rome, New York?
Rome, New York.
Was it tough there?
Was it what?
Was it tough in that neighborhood?
No, I got in a lot of fights. I was a guy that came to. I took care of a lot of things for other kids, things like that there. I was just a scruffer, and I fought. And then everybody I fought, we became best friends.
So what made you get interested in insurance?
Insurance seemed like it came to me so natural, I can't explain it. I was with the Prudential, and became a member of the $1 Million Round Table. It was quite an experience. I was making a lot of money. I was a young kid. I'm making freaking $500 a week. I'll never forget, there was an agent sitting next to me in the office. Fridays was payday, and I happened to glance over when he opened his check. And here's an older guy with a family, with children and all that there. I was still single, and his check's like $150. And mine's over $500.
What year was this?
That was 1960 something.
So that was a huge amount of money.
1968.
500's huge.
Yeah. And money just never stuck with me, though. I don't know why. I always spend it.
What did you blow it on?
I had no idea. What the hell I could tell you, but I spent money. I give money away. And I made a lot of money in my lifetime.
And what caused the crossover to associating with the mafia?
It just became a natural thing. And how it happened, it's really funny. It just came so naturally to me. The first time I met Sonny Franches, I remember meeting him with Lou Perry, who was a casting director. The guy that discovered D. Martin Jerry Lewis brought me to meet Sonny because a friend of mine's life was being threatened. And I met Sonny, and I met his kids, who were all little kids at the time, at Trattoria Siciliana on 2nd Avenue. and we had dinner, and what's that thing that popped up?
You got something on your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on your screen. It's okay on this end. I can still see you fine.
And so where was I?
You went to dinner?
We went to dinner, and it was a dinner that they would never forget me, because Sonny and I sat there, we're whispering to each other. I explained it to him what the problem was with my friend, and he said that he would look into it, give back to me, and I gave him my number in Florida and my number to my office in upstate New York. And then we ate, and I ate a fish. I became allergic to it. And I was vomiting my guts out on 2nd Avenue and down in the toilet. It was bad. He had 2 guys, Johnny Irish and Red Krabby, bring me to the hospital. And I remember I'm waking up, and the doctor's asking these guys, what's his name? And the guy says, you don't need to know that, doctor. Just get him well. What's your name? Doc. Don't ask no question. Just get him well. And both those guys were drivers for Sonny at one time. And they're both dead now. Johnny Irish ended up dead in Florida.
So what was the first work you were putting in with your association?
Well, what happened was, at that meeting, Sonny did get a hold of me, and then we had a sit down in New York, and it happened to be with his stepson, Michael Franches. And it didn't go that well for Michael. Michael was wrong in what he was doing. And Michael and I never got along since then. And Michael became an informant, as everybody knows. And now he's a born-again Christian, he proclaims. Do I believe that? No.
Well, at that meeting, you said what Michael was doing was wrong. What do you mean by that at that meeting specifically?
Michael was having somebody robbing warranties. Name of the company was Polyglycol. No need to ever shine your car again. Guaranteed for 3 years. And Walter was just big. Every time you turn the TV, you see the ad. And he gave the distributorship for, it was Nassau, Suffolk County, Long Island, to his brother-in-law, who happened to also be Michael Franches' brother-in-law. And they were selling an inferior product, but claiming it was polyglycol. And they were stealing the warranties from the bottom, out of Walter's office, from the bottom of the pile. Now, the only way Walter found out about it was they started getting claims on warranties that they never issued. And so Walter was going to take the distributorship, and Michael started calling Walter 5 cent and threatening his life. And Walter called me. I said, Walter, nobody's going to call you and threaten your life. They're either going to kill you or they're not. I said, but people don't call up and say, I'm going to come and kill you. I said, you're not going to have a warning. So it's bullshit. And then Walter asked me to fly into New York. I was living in Florida, in my condo there. And asked me to fly in to close Victor Potockin, who was the largest Cadillac dealer at that time. So we went, we closed them. We went to Club 21 for lunch. Walter went to make a phone call, comes back, white as a ghost, leans over, he says, kid, I know you're wired in. You got to stay and find out. And that's what happened. I did. I stayed. I found out. And as it turned out, it was Michael Franches. And so Sonny called us all. We had a meeting at the Russian Tea Room. And otherwise, after that, the only other time I saw Michael was, do you know anything about Michael Franches?
Yeah, I've watched most of his interviews on YouTube.
All right. Michael Franches, when he got out of prison, his brother was living out here. Asked his brother if I would meet him. And there used to be a place I hung out over on Santa Monica Boulevard called the Rangoon Racket Club. I said, have him meet me there at 5 o'clock. I got there, Michael was there. I took him in the alley. I said, what do you need, Michael? He said, well, you know, he said, I said, no, you broke the mold, Michael. I said, but what do you want to see me for? He said, well, you know everything's going on here in town. I'd appreciate it if you could let me know if any strangers fly into town. I said, if your father asked me to do it, Michael, I'll do it. And he said, okay. And he reached out to me. I never reached out to Michael for anything. I don't need Michael Franches in my life. But Sonny called me the following week. Sonny was in prison. I asked Sonny, he said, don't do a damn thing. So I didn't do nothing.
How come Sonny ended up in prison?
Sonny ended up in prison several times. Basically, it stems from he originally got 50 years on a robbery where other guys were robbing banks, bank robberies. And throughout the whole country, I guess it was. And he got 50 years on it and supposedly had nothing to do with it. I believe he was actually set up because the guys tried to say they paid tribute to Sonny. And Sonny didn't even know these guys. And it was a setup. He ended up getting 50 years. I think got out at the 12. And he's become the most violated person. I mean, he violated his paper so many times, over 6 times. They just kept going back to prison. And then his last indictment was the indictment with the Colombo family, which I was on that indictment as well. And yeah, that was his last. He's 102.
Going back to your life then, you've described how you met the Sonny and Michael. So what kind of work were you then putting in for the Columbos?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I had my thing going out here in California. A lot of things I did are legitimate. What I did that was not legitimate, I kept to myself. I'm not going to go tell everybody what the hell I'm doing.
I hear you.
And
what stuff can you talk about?
Huh?
What stuff can you talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
Oh, what work you were doing that was legitimate in Hollywood?
I was doing marijuana. I was flying marijuana for Arizona weed every couple of weeks, 500 pounds from Arizona into New York and distributing it. That was a good gig for a while.
What year was that?
Actually, I think that was in the 2000s, early 2000s.
Okay, so that was when we were active in Arizona. So you were getting the weed coming up from Mexico, and then
I had a guy in Arizona. He had a home. Took the weed. We had the pilot, great pilot, older guy. Loaded his plane. It was good. And I had my driver from the city. I had different airports that we scoured in upstate New York. Plane would fly in, unload, out. And I had it brought to a location in Brooklyn. I'd have my guys lined up. You get 50 pounds, depending on what line of credit I gave these guys. And I wasn't around that weed for longer than 5 minutes. I distributed it, went to my hotel, the Warwick, and then in the evenings, they came with the money and paid me.
So they're calling you a Hollywood fixer. Exactly what does that mean?
Well, Hollywood fixer. I began with Dino De Laurentiis and Ralph Serpi, who I also met through Frank Russo. I met them at the filming of The Brinks Job in Boston. And so we became close. I'd come to California, and a lot of times there'd be a problem with the studio, an agent, actors and actresses having problems, and they called me, and I resolved the issues. It was like selling insurance. It was very easy to convince the people why they should do the right thing. It came as a second. I never needed a gun to do anything.
And could you give an example of the kind of communication involved in that?
Oh, well, there was an actor, a big actor that everybody would know, action guy, and agency owed them $2 million, and they would not release it because the producers, they were waiting for the producer, and the producers were having an issue because of something the actor didn't do. And it happened to be two producers, one who lived in Los Angeles, the other who lived in Vancouver. So I contacted the guy who lived in Los Angeles. He met me at the Four Seasons. We had a talk. He understood who he was talking to. We set up another meeting where his partner came in from Vancouver. We sat down, we ironed it out. They called the agency and had the money released. But unfortunately, that action star became an informant on another case in New York. And I never got a nickel. I never got a thank you from him.
Jeez. Someone who was more reliable paying you was Suge Knight. What was your relationship with him?
Suge was a good guy. There was a guy from London that Joy introduced me to because I had a stock of inventory from Universal, DVDs and DVDs, whatever they were in those days. And he wanted to buy them all. We agreed on a price, and Ron Winters was a master of telling you he wired the money. And he never wired it. And I'm waiting for like a fool. And he comes up, well, the Bank of London, and then I went to this bank, and, it takes longer. I mean, finally I realized, all right, the guy was, and when he would fly into Los Angeles, he would stay at a hotel but never use his own name. So you couldn't find this fucker. And one day, a producer had a meeting with him at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel and told me that this guy, Ron Winters was his name, was flying in. He had a meeting. I said, okay. I said, once you come down, let me know what room number. I'll be at the bar. Well, as it turned out, when the producer got there, Suge Knight was there. Because it happened to be the guy that also had Death Row, had the distributorship to distribute Death Row in England. But Ron Winters was distributing Death Row all over Europe. And he owed a ton of money to Suge. So when this guy told me, he said, there's this crazy guy, this Ori, he's very serious. He's going to throw him out the window. Suge came down to the bar, and that's when we met. And he asked me not to do anything, and he says that we'll make money on something else, there's other things. And so we, one day Suge called me. I went over to his office, met with him, and he told me this guy owed him millions of dollars. So Joey and I made an agreement, Joey Pyle. We made an agreement with Suge that we'll collect the money for less commission than we normally would. Well, we wanted to do it every month, and we'll make sure this guy pays. We'll get up our own bookkeeper, put him in Ron's office, and Joey got the first $1 million, was wired to Suge. By that time, Suge was violated, I believe, and was in prison up north. But he called his lawyer, and 10%, next day, 100 grand was in my bank.
Wow.
Kept his word. And of course, I took care of Joey in London, and we were all happy. But then I became close with the guys in his office, and we wanted for Joey Jr., who flew here, him and my son, to be on the visiting list so we can continue to deal with Suge. And they assured us that they were on the list. So Joe flew in, my son Anthony picked them up. They had to fly in someplace up north to rent a car. They get to the prison, they're not on the list. So we never got the opportunity to collect any more money, but, Suge and I remained close. And, we would run each other in the Four Seasons or other places. And even when I was away, he would run into my son and always send his love. So I got nothing bad to say about Suge Knight.
What do you think about the case he's in for now?
The case against him?
Yeah.
I think, I don't think he should have gotten all the time that he got. They were going to try to kill him. I firmly believe it was probably an accident. He didn't run over that guy intentionally. That's my belief, and others believe the same thing. But then again, he's Suge Knight. He was notorious. And, when the government wants you, they're going to get you, right or wrong. Most people don't understand how the system works. And in this country, my next book's going to be called My Journey Through the Judicial System. It's going to be quite a different book, because I'm going to show people what the Bill of Rights says and what they really give us, and my interpretation of the Constitution. You hear that every day if you turn on a TV today. They talk the constitutional right. What freaking rights do we have? I mean, I'm not allowed to smoke in this apartment. I pay my rent there. Government don't pay my rent. I pay it. But they passed a law now, you can't smoke in your own home. Now, is that a free country?
I never heard of that. In England, you can still smoke in your own home.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's Beverly Hills, California. Of course I smoke. I pay no attention to it. But if you get caught smoking out on this, you can walk with a cigarette. But if you're standing still, they'll give you a ticket.
They got to fill those prisons up somehow.
Well, they're doing a good job of it.
So if you were close to Suge then, do you have any theories about what happened to Tupac?
Tupac got killed, didn't he?
Yeah.
I really don't have a theory on it. I don't believe the only person that really knows what happened is the person that did it. Everything else is a theory. You got to remember it was the East Coast, West Coast thing. And I believe it was all part of that war, the East Coast, West Coast. They claimed this guy, Orlando, what's his name? Got my name. Orlando Anderson is the shooter. So that might be, I guess, and that's all we can go about.
Because like you said about the government, he was speaking out about the government as well, wasn't he?
Dead too. Orlando Anderson's dead. So I don't believe it was probably Orlando Anderson. It was a good, clever hit.
So on another interview, what I found fascinating, somebody had threatened somebody, said they were going to kill them, and you said real gangsters don't pre-announce that they're going to kill you. You know guys who've murdered dozens of people, and they would never ever say that they'd done anything because of the statute of limitations. What makes a good hitman?
What makes a good hitman?
Yeah.
A good hitman has got to be able to do it properly, quietly, and dispose of the body. Disposing of the body is the most important thing, because with no body, there's no crime. And it takes a work of art.
Yeah, I interviewed a guy who was an associate of the Bano crime family, and he worked under Charlie Bats Battaglia, and he said that the Bats had whacked people from coast to coast and buried the bodies, and he taught him all the methods of getting rid of the bodies, because he'd never got caught. Like, you know, putting a dead dog, burying the corpse really deep, and then putting a dead dog over it so that the cadaver dogs, if they come out, they smell the dead animal and they don't go any deeper and find the corpse and things like that. Anything you can share?
Well, I'll tell you, years ago, it was, double bodies in a coffin. You know, you had guys, they were friends of ours, and they own funeral home, and they're burying John Doe, but in the same coffin is somebody else. You're never going to find it.
Yeah, he said Joe Bonanno Sr.
Yeah.
invested in funeral homes and they had double-decker coffins.
Yeah.
What do you think of Joe Bonanno Sr.? Because he was running the commission for a long time. He got run out of New York, but he actually died of natural causes. So you could say, being in that lifestyle, you know, he kind of got away with a lot and lived a long time.
Well, what do I personally think of Joe Bonanno? I think he messed up. And what most people don't realize, and I know a lot of Bonanno guys. I know the guy was just a former boss of the Bonanno. I was away with him in prison. He's a good guy. But, you know, Joe